What did y'all come up with? Go ahead.
8,730.
Ooh. Anybody got anything bigger?
Can you explain how you got that?
How I got that? Well, I did 3 to the power of 70 times 2 times 3.
Okay. Anything else? Go ahead.
9,536.
Okay. 9,536.
Can you explain how you got that?
2.5 to the 10.
2.5 to the 10. We're using decimals. Anything higher?
No.
Go ahead.
15,552.
Oh, I've got to play this one. How did you do that?
We split it down to a bunch of small numbers and multiple times, like 4 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 4 3 times 6.
3 times 2 times why? Okay. Does it add up to equal 25?
Yeah.
Okay. So give me those numbers again. 4 times 3 times.
How many fours?
Okay, there's 2 4s,
Okay.
there's 2 2s, and there's 5 3s. And then 4.
2 2s and a 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody add that up. Make sure it's 25.
It's over 25.
No, take off the 3. Oopsies.
Uh-oh.
All right. Make sure that multiplied to get you 15,552. Get some head shakes. What we get?
While we're waiting, any other numbers? In that region?
No. Everybody's like, nope, we done. We got to like 500. That's it. That's all right.
Did anyone get over 1 million? You can get that high. But how do you do that? You have to use negative numbers too. Uh-oh.
Right? Everybody said, oh. All right. So the highest we have is 9,536. I'm sorry, 536. Yes, no? Good. Okay. All right. Wasn't bad, right? Okay. So just kind of a summary from yesterday. The first learning target that we had, we talked about quantitative. Also, I apologize for my handwriting. If there's something that you can't read, just ask me. Quantitative variable, and you're going to want to write super small. That's where we take numerical value or counted quantities. Okay, we also talked about categorical variables. And that's where we take on values that are group labels. Again, write small. Or category names. Now, the graphs for these are going to show frequency, which is how many, or relative frequency, which is going to show the percentage. I'm going to pause. I'm going to let you finish, and then we'll continue. All right, so then we had learning target number 2. and we talked about two-way tables. It was kind of like a little review from geometry. Oh, can't write two-way table. There we go. Two-way table. That was a review from geometry. So we had that little chart. There's definitely more than just a 2x2. We had something up here. We had the total on the outside. We had the total at the end. We always want to make sure that we label. So we put variable 1. And then on the side, we're going to write variable 2. And we want to make sure that we include our total on the outside. We also have the discussion of marginal, which that is our total of one variable over our total number of things. So that's B over C. Yeah.
What is the A, B? Like what is that?
Those are the numbers. So like if you look back at our little two-way table, that would be like with math and English, that chart on the previous page. So for instance, A would be 2. A is just representing that number. Does that make sense? Okay. Yep. Say it again. Mm-hmm. So like an example of marginal was saying how many people took art out of the total class. So we would say 6 out of 30. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. All right. When we talked about joint yesterday, that was where two things crossed over. Okay. So joint is going to interact with variable 1 and variable 2. So that's going to be A over C. The last one we talked about was conditional. And for conditional, we would say A over B. So these two variables would interact. We would not put it over our total. So we wouldn't put it over C. So we're going to say A over B. Okay. And I'm going to pause. I'll let you catch up a whole lot. Okay. So the last thing that we talked about is our learning target number 3. And that's going to be misleading graphs. Okay. So what you have to really be careful of is you've got to make sure that your vertical axis starts at 0. Has to start at 0. Okay. Otherwise you get some crazy stuff. Okay. The other thing is beware of using images for bar graphs. There shouldn't be some crazy picture there. Okay. On number 1, what's wrong with this graph?
It doesn't start at 0.
It doesn't start at 0. So when you actually draw the graph, make sure you put a 0 down here and then space it out. I know this is going to look a little wonky, but do you see how big these are by comparison of these? This is squished, right? So it's kind of misleading. We good on that one?
Yes.
Okay. On part A, what proportion of the houses shown were built in Pinewood Estates? 60 over 220. So the first thing you do, if you get a table, you need to add up the totals for all the columns and rows. Yeah, that's step number 1. Then you look at, what is it talking about? It's talking about Pinewood Estates. We look at the total, that's 60 over the total number, which is 220. Is that marginal, joint, or conditional? Marginal. Okay.
You have to write that down.
I would label it because you should be comfortable with those terms. They do sound important. All right, part B. Find the distribution of decade built for the houses in this town using relative frequencies. Okay. So from the 1960s, how many were there? Out of how many? 220. So we got 0.455. For the 1970s, how many were there in total?
90.
Yeah, 45%. That's okay. 90 out of 220. And then you got 0.409. Yep.
Yeah.
And I want you to get comfortable with putting that decimal down. Don't leave it in fraction form. Okay. It's going to be important later. All right. On the last one for 1980s, we got 30 out of 220, and that's 0.136. Yep. You can turn it to percentage. That's okay. When we start talking about the next chapter, you're going to want to leave it in decimal form though. Okay. All right, on part C, what percent of homes were built in Oak Crest and in the 1960s?
27.
Okay,
Who's right?
27.3, or you could do 60 divided by 220, which is 0.273. Good. What kind of frequency is that? Joints, because two things are crossing over.
Yeah.
We okay on that? Okay. Let me propose this question. What percent of Oak Crest homes were built in the 1960s? What percent of Oak Crest homes were built in the 1960s?
75%.
Okay, how do we know that?
Because it's 60 over 8.
It's 60 over 80. What kind of relative frequency is that?
That's
Okay, good. Are we okay on that? Huh? Yes. Yes. Yep. All right, we okay? Questions, comments, concerns? Yeah. B is marginal. So you want to think about it this way. Marginal is the total out of the total number of things. Like it's on the outside. Joint is where they cross over. So variable 1 and variable 2 cross over. It's that and then conditional is given that you're talking about variable 1 or 2, you have that other variable. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, go ahead and look at the practice that you picked up earlier. I'm going to give you a little bit more time. Okay, go ahead and do 1.1. I want you to do questions 1 through, let's do 1 through 5. Let's do 1 through 5. Okay. If you didn't grab one, they're up here in the purple box. Okay, so 1 through 5. Okay, so on the first one, give 2 examples of quantitative and 2 examples of categorical. Let's start with categorical. What's an example? Favorite genre, what? Favorite genre of movies. What else? Go ahead. Favorite color. Okay, now let's talk about quantitative. So we know that it's dealing with quantities, right? Okay, so what things in our lives deal with quantities? Go ahead. How many shoes you own? Okay. Number of hours of sleep. Speed of a car. What about height? Okay. What about your number of siblings? Okay, so numbers that are associated with things, right? So if I asked you a question and you gave me a number, that would be quantitative. Does that make sense?
right.
Okay, so now we're not stuck on that one.
Ask someone else another question, it would be like a yes or no answer.
You'd have to ask for them to pick something. Yeah, I guess you could do the yes or no. But that's going to be like, it's not going to be a good survey. So, all right, keep going. But I wanted to make sure that we understood that. Okay, go ahead and get started. Remember, you're doing 1 through 5, 1 through 5. Okay, let's kind of chat through 2 and 3. So on 2, identify the individual. So who are we talking about? The baseball teams, the 30 MLB teams, right? All right, which variables are quantitative? Okay. And then which one are categorical? So the league and whether or not they actually reach the playoffs, right? Everybody good on that? Yep.
So the individual.
They're not counted as a variable. They're who we're talking about. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. On number 3, part A, identify the variable and whether it's quantitative or categorical. Genre of movie, and we are categorical. Good? What do you mean no? You want to?
No.
Oh, you don't want to. With the bar graph, remember, go up by a consistent number each time. So our maximum, and remember, we're doing these by percentages. Yes, no, maybe?
Yes.
Okay. So with that being said, let's go down here. Let's go ahead and convert these into percentages. So how many total do we have? Say words again. 481. Okay, so for each one, we're going to take the total frequency and divide it by the total number of movies. Okay, so take 144, divide it by 481. Tell me what you get. 29.9%. Take 79, divided by 41. 16.4%. Take 58, divided by 41. 12.1.
Wait, we round it. Is that what?
Yes, you're on. 54 divided by 41.
11.2.
11.2%. 47 divided by 41. Okay. And then 39 divided by 41. 8.1%. And 60 divided by 41. Okay. What is our biggest number on those percentages? Drama. Okay, so that goes up to about 30, right? Okay, so do you think that we could go up by 5s
Sure.
on our bar graph? Yeah? All right, why did we turn these into percentages? Okay, relative frequency chart. So the fact that it said relative frequency, that means that we have to turn it into a percent. Everybody okay?
Yes.
Okay, in stats, you have to read the full question. I would probably read it through twice. Okay, all right, so go ahead and draw a straight line, which apparently I can't do on this thing. It's fine. Make sure you label your sides. So relative frequency on one side. And on the other, we're going to say genre of movie. Genre of movie. At the bottom, you're going to list out all the different genres. And then remember on the side, we're going to go from 0 and increase by 5s as we're going up. Mine's going to look a little janky. I apologize. A little janky. What? It's fine. We're just gonna work with it. All right, documentary was 16. And hopefully your bar graph looks a lot better than mine. So sorry. Comedy, we had 12%. Action, we're at 11.2. Thriller, we were at 9.7. Horror, we had 8.1. And other, we had 12.5%. Yeah, real janky. And with drama, we got 30%. I'm not going to draw that out. I feel like you got that. Yes, such a bad. Now, what's another type of graph? A pie chart.
The histogram.
A box of whiskers.
No, we're going to use pie chart to display this data. Yeah. What you know about that box? We're going to talk about that later on. That comes back, yo. Yeah. All right, looking at number 4, let's do A, B, C, D, and then we'll move on. Okay, so a CBS News survey asked a random sample of US adults to identify their age and their preferred format for listening to music. The results are as shown in the table. Identify the explanatory variable and the response variable. Oh, okay. Have y'all done number 4 yet? No? Okay. Okay. So we're gonna start talking about a little bit more on bar graphs, and then we're gonna move into mosaic plots. Some people struggle with it just a little bit, so I want to spend a lot of time on this. Tonight, if you can finish up to question 5, that would be great. But let's go ahead and start talking about what will be the mascot. So, anybody want to read the top? Go ahead, read it.
When the high school was built in 2003, the school needed a class. The principal decided to have the students and teachers vote between 3 choices: Falcons, Lions, or Olympics. He took a random sample of students and a random sample of teachers. The results of this third surveys are given in the table.
So actually, when they like create a school, they get a committee together and they decide on whatever the mascot's going to be. So I graduated from Archer. Fun fact. I was on, say again?
Was it a bow down?
Oh, no, I suggested that. I thought it would be funny. But they were going to say like the Archer armadillos, and I nixed that really quickly. I was like, no, because I was on the committee that we decided that it was going to be the Tigers. We decided it was going to be red and silver, and we created the crest. It was super cool. So they actually do this like every time they open a school. They get like groups of kids together and they get to pick. So yeah. So with that being said, we're going to create 2 bar graphs below to display the results. And we're going to use 3 different colors for the bar graph. So I would have like a pencil, a pen, and maybe like a highlighter of some sort. If you can do 3 different colors, that'd be awesome. Came prepared. Dope.
First year.
Thank God.
You're not bad.
Okay, so over here we got the teachers. Designate some color for teachers. We've got the Falcons, the Lions, and the Rockets. So for Falcons, we're going to do obviously like an F. For Lions, we're going to do an L, and Rockets, we're going to put an R. That's just going to make it smaller down here at the bottom. So go ahead and label down here at the bottom. Okay, fortunately, they already put on our graphs relative frequency on the side. Since these are already in percentages, that really helps us out. So what was the percentage of Falcons for the teachers? 80%. Okay, so on your paper, you are using 1 color for Falcons. 1 color for Falcons. So designate a color for Falcons and go ahead and graph that for teachers. Lord, I cannot draw a straight line. Okay. For students, how many did they have? 30. So on the next one, you're going to do 30%. Everybody good? Now you're going to pick up your next color, whatever that is. Okay. For the Lions, how many do they have for teachers? 10%. How many do they have for students? 60%. And then you're going to pick up your next color. Let's see. Purple. All right. How many do they have for Rockets for both? 10% for both. Right here. Make sure that you label both graphs. Ridge Rockets. It's but the Ridge Falcons for me. Not a fan. All right, so we've seen over the past 2 days, these are called bar graphs right here, the students and the teachers, right? Okay, now we're going to talk about segmented bar graph. That's going to be this guy over here. Okay, this is going to fill up to 100%. Okay, so looking back, what color did you use for Falcons? Okay, whatever color it is, go ahead and pick that color up. Under where it says teachers, you're going to go up to 80%. Okay, whatever you used for Lions, you're going to pick that up. How much did Lions have for teachers? 10. So we're going to add 10% onto here. And then for the Rockets, you're going to add that last 10%. So when you do a segmented bar graph, you are going to have it go all the way up to 100%, right? If it doesn't go up to 100%, you probably did something wrong. Can you draw the students one now? Make sure that you use the right colors. Or should look something like that, right? Again, has to go up to 100%, okay? So looking at number 3, it says, according to your displays, which mascot appears to have the most support? What do you think? Falcons. Why Falcons? I heard words. The combined student and teacher support is bigger for Falcons than Lions or Rockets. Okay, in AP Stat, when you give an explanation, you have to be specific. You can't just be like, it had a bigger bar graph thingy. Can't say that. You got to be real specific about what you're talking about. Okay, so looking at this, it says, upon hearing the results of the survey, the students argued that the decision was incorrect because 100 teachers had been surveyed and 500 students had been surveyed. Use this information to fill in the table below with the number of responses. So how many teachers were there in total? 100. So we're going to go ahead and put that outside. Okay, and how many students did we have in total? Okay, how many total people did we survey? 600. Okay. Everybody with me so far? Now, if there were 100 teachers, how much percentage was it up at the top that they had for Falcons? 80%. So out of 100, if we're doing 80%, how many people would that be? 80. Okay, good. What if 10% for Lions? 10. And then Rockets? Okay, good. Now, for the next one, we have 500 students. The percentage for Falcons was 30%. So how do we figure out how many kids voted Falcons? Okay, and what'd you do? What'd you get when you got 150? All right, what'd you get for Lions? 300. All right, what'd you get for Rockets? Okay, did I lose anybody with filling that table in? Okay. Now again, total up your people. So 80 plus 150, 230. 10 plus 300, 10 plus 50. Okay, 60. Woo. Woo. Need a nap and jukebox. Okay, so how many times more students were sampled than teachers? 5 times. So how can we update the third graph above to take into account the sample size? Okay, so what we're going to do is look at your segmented bar graph. Okay, if we say that it's 5 times more than what the teachers had, what we're going to do is we're going to add how many more bars on to represent 5 times more than the teachers?
5.
Not 5.
1.
Not 1.
2.
So we're going to take this and we're going to add 4 more to represent that 5 times more than. Does that make sense? So here, you're going to take this bar and draw it again to the side over here with the same colors. Okay, so on your paper, you're going, the Falcons had this many. Don't judge my bars. Okay. Now there's 5 columns. Do you see that? And then here, same thing. Again, don't judge my straight lines. Okay. And then for purple. Okay, so why are we doing this?
So you can get access to.
Yep. Okay. It's got to represent all of the data. We sampled 500 students versus 100 teachers. Okay. Looking at that graph, should they make the Falcons their mascot?
Nope.
Look at that graph. Why?
Because it's only less obviously.
Okay. And how do we know that? Because it's okay. This is what we call a mosaic. This added on piece, that's called a mosaic. It's representing the whole picture. Okay. Go ahead and finish your graph. Go ahead and finish your graph. And we'll answer 4 and 5 down at the bottom. Okay, so answering this question on number 5, we put 5 here, okay, which we added 4 more student bars. So there are 5 total bars for students and 1 for teacher. Okay, so we added 4 more student bars. So there are 5 total bars for students and 1 for the teacher. Okay, so mosaic plot shows a proportion of the things that you're talking about. Okay, and you already told me that it's not going to be the Falcons that they pick. What should they make Peachtree Ridge High School's mascot? The Lions. Yay. Okay. And the reason why is because there were more people who chose Lions. And if you look at your proportion from the mosaic plot, there were 310 people who chose Lions than the other mascots, which those were 230 and 60. Another thing to note is that on the mosaic plot, the Lions had the largest area on the mosaic plot. We okay on that? Not too bad? Okay. Haven't lost anybody. Haven't scared anybody yet. You're going to survive AP Stat. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. If you did not finish problems 1 through 5 on that practice, try to get that done tonight. Okay. I know that you're going to get hopefully you get your Chromebook during Pride today. Hopefully. If you can, join that Google Classroom. Okay. If you got lost or stuck or you weren't paying attention because you were too tired or whatever, I'm going to post the YouTube videos from today and yesterday. But get through questions 1 through 5 on that practice. Okay. If you want to, There's also an online textbook. Okay, if you go to your portal, you should see this textbook. Let me delete this really quick. On here, it's going to say practice of statistics. Okay, so look on your portal and you should be able to find that. Good? Questions, comments, concerns? Okay.
No.